What is the funniest thing you've ever witnessed right in front of you? I was walking through my neighborhood on a Sunday morning loudly singing, "Me say day, me say day-o," and a Jamaican guy popped his head out of the trunk of a car and sang "Daylight Come" and "One Go Home." He had been packing the trunk or something and I couldn't see him. It was wonderful. My sister and 2 Cocker Spaniels were out back. Sliding glass door closed. The 2 dogs decide to run at full sprint inside. Bam, both dogs collide with the door. Then my unaware sister does the exact same thing. It all happened in about 6 seconds. I was sitting at some traffic lights a few weeks ago and a guy on a fancy racing bicycle rode up onto the traffic island to wait to cross. Except he forgot he was wearing those shoes which clip into the pedals. So he stopped, balanced for a second, and then just toppled over. At that moment the light changed to green, so I had to drive off. One of the funniest things I ever saw. Substitute high school chemistry teacher demonstrating reaction between calcium carbide and water. Test for the presence of acetylene with burning splint. Experiment instructions emphasized multiple times that only a single crystal of calcium carbide should be used. Asshole poured the whole bottle into the petri dish and then sent the class nerd to the office when he tried to interrupt the guy. When he actually tested for acetylene, his whole upper body was engulfed in a fireball that shot up, hit the ceiling, and left a black soot ring. The guy was okay, except every hair on his head had been singed off. So I'm sitting outside a Boudin Sourdough Bakery in San Francisco near the Fisherman's Wharf and see the guy come out with one of their bread bowls full of soup. Now if you've never been here, let me tell you, the seagulls are everywhere and pretty aggressive about trying to get your food. So the guy goes and sits down and starts eating his clam chowder and the birds are everywhere, squawking like seagulls do, and you can see it's irritating this guy. So he makes the mistake of tearing off a piece of bread and throwing it to the gulls. He thought it was bad before, but once they knew they could get food out of him, he was surrounded. So one of the seagulls lands near the guy and is standing with its back to him about 5 feet away. The guy gets up, walks over, and kicks the shit out of this bird. As soon as he turns around, he realizes this was a mistake. I would say there were 50 seagulls on this guy's food. He then screams, "Oh, I see how it is. You send your retarded friend to distract me while you sons of bitches enjoy my food." It was quite funny. TL. Dr. Seagulls are jerks. I worked at Santa's Village, a down-market amusement park. In the 80s. See Adventureland for an exact replica of the scene. Standing in my carnival game booth, I watched a kid stagger off the spinning teacup, ride a good distance away, and then veered easily this way and that until he wound up directly in front of my booth, at the very center of my field of vision. He paused a second, puked up everything he ever ate in his entire life, and then staggered out of frame. It was like this perfectly choreographed little movie scene I can still play in my head. Thank you 80s kid. You were, and still are, hilarious. I was at camp as a kid one summer, and a tedious counselor was telling a story. Everyone thought he was boring, but for once, he had our attention. We stood in a circle in some woods, watching as his tale telling became more animated due to our attention. At a climactic moment of his story, he pointed skyward and inclined his head, saying, "And I looked up." Apostrophe. At that moment, a bird flew over and shat on his forehead. I thought I would stop breathing from laughing so hard. Was at the movies with a buddy. He went to take a shit, so I entered the stall right next to his for a reason I can't remember, then came right back out. A few seconds later, this gigantic 300-pound black fellow comes in and sits in the stall I was previously in. My buddy, who thinks I'm still in the stall, wipes his ass, then starts waving the poop-covered toilet paper to the guy in the stall. I've never seen anyone yell so many curse words in public before. While all this was happening, I was on the bathroom floor crying and laughing harder than I ever had before. My university choir went to Finland one year, which was an amazing experience. The day we arrived, my brain was a bit foggy from the jet lag, but I wanted to take advantage of being there, so I went with my friends to explore Helsinki. I was walking down the street talking to one of my friends next to me when I walked straight into a pole. I wasn't hurt at all, just surprised. But as I collected myself I noticed that the only person who had noticed aside from my friend was this random Finnish dude on the other side of the street who was intensely cracking up from what he had seen. I think the sight of him laughing uproariously at my stupid moment is one of the funniest sights I've ever seen. A very icy parking lot and a bunch of high schoolers rushing to their car. I saw at least 20 people slip and fall that day. I really enjoy watching people fall. High schoolers plus cars plus ice sounds like a dangerous combination. We had a Halloween party with a Pinata because ducking candy. Anyway, one guy was dressed as Lieutenant Dangle and one guy was dressed as the Hamburglar. Somebody knocked the Pinata off the rope and without missing a beat the Hamburglar picked up the Pinata and took off. Dangle drew his gun and immediately gave chase, yelling into his fake police radio all the way down the street. In 8th grade I had a friend named Roland who was about 4 feet tall and another friend named Carl who was about 200 pounds and about 5 feet 7. During lunch, in the cafeteria, Cole was getting his food and Roland noticed his sweatpants sitting on the bench. Roland put on Carl's sweatpants over his own clothes and proceeded to walk around with them pulled up over his head. Carl saw it and ran to catch Roland. We had tears in our eyes from laughing as Carl chased his own sweatpants around the cafeteria. My dad was at a stoplight in downtown Cleveland and some guy with sagging pants starts using the crosswalk. His pants were sagging so bad that halfway across the street they just fell off and he fell flat on his face. Some big 300+ pound dude was lambasting some girl for being too skinny and was saying you look like you need a freaking donut you twig. A little 8-year-old nearby said you ate them all. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Apostrophe. It would have been kinda funny regardless, but the fact it was such a young kid made it hilarious. Went sledding the other day and some random dog took a major dump right at the bottom of the hill we were at. My friend screams up to warn everyone, then points it out to let everyone know. One kid comes zooming down the hill, realizes he's in the direct path of the shit pile, tries to stop before he hits it, bails right on top of it, and the smears a little path of it as he's trying to stop tumbling. In a flash he grabbed his sled, then noped the duck out. I didn't even see him leave. If he had just kept going he went right over it and been totally fine. I named him Streaks. Maybe not the funniest, but this annoying little girl was weaving recklessly through a crowd of people at the mall. I could see the scene from above as I rode the escalator up. She tripped and fell and spilled her bag of Skittles all over the place and particularly in front of a shoe store. As she got up, an employee standing at the front of the store told her in a heavy Indian accent taste the rainbow. Apostrophe. I was getting dressed in our bedroom and was naked from the waist down, standing at the end of the bed. My wife must have seen something behind me poking out from under the bed and went down on 2 knees to fish it out. I really had not been paying close attention to how close she was and bent over to pick up my underwear just as she straightened up with both of her hands full of whatever she had fished out from under the bed. As you might imagine, she was surprised to see my ass a mere few inches from her face, and as a result she accidentally lost her balance, and instead of dropping whatever she had and steadying herself on the bed, she held onto it for dear life and slowly tipped over falling face first into the crack of my hairy ass. I was, as you might imagine, surprised as hell that there was suddenly a face in my ass. I stood up so quickly and clenched my butt cheeks so tight that I locked her nose firmly between my cheeks, and then time stood still. I was shocked and stood like a statue in stunned silence. She started screaming a muffled wail into my ass crack, and we both wondered what to do next. She started flailing wildly to find a purchase, and suddenly she realized she could drop whatever she was holding and push herself away. She grabbed my ass and shoved so hard she nearly pushed me halfway across the room. She sprung up and ran to the restroom so fast you could almost hear the Doppler effect and started washing her face while both crying and laughing at the same time. To this day all I have to do to get her to cringe in fear and embarrassment is mention the ass crack incident. Apostrophe. Please subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed this video and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.